So a good question that parents ask me is, hey, I heard this school was a party school, right? Well, I always tell parents, well, it's just like high school, right, for a young person, right? They can find a party if they want to find one. They'll find the drugs or they'll find the stuff. But let's do it the opposite way. Because, John, there's never been a better time than right now in our society for growth, for AI, for what this world's going to go through in the next 5, 10, 15 years. You're seeing your first trillionaires. You're seeing so there's more opportunities.
Welcome to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast, where we talk about all things franchising. Now, here's your host, Dr. John P. Hayes.
Hi, it's John Hayes with another fascinating episode of the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast. And my guest today is an old friend, not old in age, a longtime friend, Tom Pabin, who's been in franchising a long time as well. And he's got a book. It's called Squeezed. I don't know if I can get the whole thing in there, but we'll get it in. Squeezed is the title of his book. And how does that fit with franchising, and who's squeezing or who's getting squeezed, and all those kinds of things, Tom, we're going to talk about. So welcome to the program.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure, and love your concept. And of course, the whole mission of the Franchise Center down there is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So some years ago, I don't know, I've lost track, but you started this little company called Class 101. And
Right.
I used to say College 101 all the time, but people will understand why I would say that, because you prepare young people while they're in high school to get into college, a college of their choice, a college that's ideal for them, and which is a mistake that I see. I've spent my career with college students, and sometimes I have to scratch my head and say, "What are you doing at this university?"
Right.
It's not a fit for them, and you help avoid that problem, and you help overcome money issues as well. And so what is Class 101?
Yeah, Class 101 is a college planning firm, right? So back in 1997, I started it by myself, and because I realized there was just a lot of kids that needed help. I was a youth minister, and parents were coming to me to help their kids, or they didn't know. So I started with my first students were out of my youth ministry program, and then it just led into a lot of other things, and it just started growing. And I didn't realize how expensive college was getting, and how much parents needed help, and how much just having somebody else besides a parent to help them go through the process would behoove them. And so started growing the business. And then fortunately for me, John, as you know, right, I kind of built my systems, and I didn't start franchising to year 10.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had a solid system-based franchise. So when I started it, I launched it, and my original first few franchise owners are still with us to this day. I'm not involved in the corporate side of things, but as a franchisee, I still am involved. But they're still there, right? And so, in other words, we really built it. So it took 5 years to open up the first 5 locations, and then 10 years later, we had 50, right? So nice, slow, steady growth. In really kind of building a franchise all around helping kids go to college, so high school students, and helping the moms and dads to make college more affordable.
Yeah. So now you're a franchisee of your original location.
Right.
You sold the company to a group but you are operating your original franchise and having a franchisee life that I know you enjoy and appreciate. But let me ask you some things, because so much has changed in this period of time. Number one, should everybody go to college?
No. I mean, believe it or not, right? We had, or I had, the country's largest college planning firm in the country. I don't know. It could be one of the largest ones in the world. And I have never been to college.
Interesting.
Right? So, but I'm a learner, right? So I really believe in that old Zig Ziglar quote, right? If you're not willing to learn, nobody can help you. But if you're determined to learn, nobody can stop you. I just liked college planning enough. And more importantly, I really liked dealing with high school students. So I found my passion. So we're a big passion play. And when I found that kind of, it depends on what your passion is, right? Yeah. Now, my 4 years after high school was really different. There was a time period I lived out of my car. There was other different types of things like that I was doing just to survive, and I wouldn't wish that on too many people in my life. But So everybody needs to find what they're passionate about. If you have that, then you live your life with trust and confidence because you believe in what you're doing, right? So whatever that is for people. Now, for a lot of our students, of course, right, 95, 99% of the students we work with, some go into the military or ROTC, but pretty much 99% of our kids end up going to college and typically a 4-year type of school.
Yeah. So I think it's great. You're not a college graduate, but you're preparing people to become college graduates. And that goes back to find where there's a need, find
Right.
where there's a void, find where you can provide something that people will pay for.
Right.
Your background doesn't necessarily figure into it. And maybe in some odd ways, your background did prepare you for filling this niche. Students
Yeah.
want to go to college. Many students should go to college. Some should not go to college. But then the question becomes, okay, you're going to go to college. You got thousands of choices out there. You could stay home and go to the community college.
Sure.
You could get a 2-year degree, or you can go off to the big state university in another country or in another state, pay outlandish fees. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe that's not worth it. You provide them and their parents, who are probably paying for this, at least College 101, to help the student out to figure out
Right.
what should we do. This is a great service that you provide. So I'm happy to see the progression of it. I'm happy that you came and discovered Palm Beach Atlantic University when you visited the Titus Center for Franchising. And you said to me, we don't send anybody to Palm Beach Atlantic University because we didn't know you existed until now.
Right.
Franchising brought you to PBA. Then you had your annual meeting on our campus.
Yep.
And then next thing I knew, I had a knock on my door. Hey, hello, I'm a new student. College 101 sent me here to Palm Beach Atlantic. And I think that's happened every year, at least once or twice that's
Yeah.
been going on since then. So thank you for that. So the other thing is, does college just cost too much money?
Whew, you can pay too much money, right? I mean, that is a possibility because if somebody's wants a career that is, my wife happens to be a teacher, so if you're going to be in education, right, and your salary's probably set now, right? When you leave college, they kind of know what your salary range is depending on your market that you're going to. But if you were to go to a very high-end school, a Vanderbilt, to pay $100,000 for an education degree, that probably wouldn't be worth it, right? To spend $400,000 on a career that pretty much your salary is set, right? So there is a value, right? I mean, some schools are worth more money, right? We pay more for a little nicer car or a little nicer, brand name shirt, right? We would pay more for that. But this is not just hundreds of dollars, right? It's tens of thousands of dollars per year. But John, it is your kid's future.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so we're all going to overpay for that, right? To
Yeah.
do everything we can as parents,
Yeah.
right? To help them try to get to the right place. I do believe you can pay too much. I do believe that sometimes the weight of the prominence or the academic reputation of the school is overvalued, right? People pay for that. Where the number one factor is always the student, right? The student goes to that college, and if they're going to go get their master's or grad school or med school or whatever, their performance is the number one thing, not the reputation of the school. So, yeah, so you can pay too much. Like you said, though, with your school and with others, it's about the right fit. It always is, right?
Yeah.
A right fit for your career, right fit for how you're built as a person, right? How God's made you.
Yeah.
Right. Let's find the right place for you at the right school and found that. And then same thing with business. Let's find the right people here. Not somebody who just wants to make a bunch of money. When I was the franchisor, I didn't want those people. If they said how much money I could make, even though we were doing well, I wouldn't want that person because we're looking for people that really want to lead with kids. So Class 101 happens to be what I would call the beating a company in your state. The number one company in the country for, again, that ROEI, return on emotional investment. When you invest here and you get invested in a kid's life for 1 or 2 or 3 years, like a teacher does, like a coach does, like a youth minister does, and then you're with them. We saw 1,500 people graduate yesterday. And right, it was amazing seeing those families, and it was a beautiful thing, right? And I got to be a small part of that journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the big payoff. Commencement is lots
Yeah.
of fun. And for almost 60 years, in the recent years, 3,500 to 4,000 students find their way to Palm Beach Atlantic University. It's a Christ First university, and they pay a lot of money for an education. And we have some terrific educators at our university. Our business school is outstanding. But one of the things that I think about as a parent, as a grandparent, and that I talk to parents about is when your student graduates, how are they going to make the money back to pay off the loans or the debt, or how much are they going to get paid? First, now today, are they going to find a job? Because that's not easy to do. The market has gotten very tight. In the 10 years that I've been at Palm Beach Atlantic University, the market has tightened considerably. So now you got a degree, but you're going to work in a coffee shop for a while to get a job. What I say to students is, why don't you learn about franchising? And I used to say, particularly to the parents, I guarantee you, if your student studies franchising and gets the franchise concentration, I guarantee you, this student will get a job, a good paying entry-level job, because every week I have had franchisors and franchisees and suppliers calling me saying, we'd sure like to hire one of your students. They know about franchising. We don't have to teach them about franchising. Who do you got? And I used to have a dozen students, or I had 10 students, or I had 20 students. Now I've got more, but I'm not getting those phone calls as much. Now, many of our students go to work for our board members, because if you're on the Titus Center Advisory Board, the big reason you're there, it's not for me, it's not for Palm Beach Atlantic University, it's for the product of Palm Beach Atlantic University and the Titus Center, and that being the student. So you get to a meeting, you meet a student who's a junior. Next year they're going to graduate. You start cultivating that relationship, and you hire, and that's what these students do. They do internships. The internship often turns into a full-time job. But there's a kid with a marketing degree, great, smart kid, terrific kid, can't find a job.
Right.
Because jobs aren't there. But if you added franchising to it, you would have found a job. Because every franchisor needs marketing people. Every franchisor needs accountants and HR people and finance people and lawyers, trainers, salespeople. They just want you to know about franchising. But nobody knows about franchising, Tom. You know, when you say I run a franchise, what are you, a coach at a sports team, or what is that?
That's
you run
right.
a McDonald's.
That's right. So, I mean, just like, again, I listened to your Gar Russell podcast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a guy that's running that RV type of franchise system, right? So when somebody graduates from your school, right? I mean, when you're in business, you can create your own, right? Your own employment. You can buy into a system, almost kind of buy a career, right? Again, should be around something you're extremely passionate about, not just to make the money. The money will come. We always tell students, hey, find what you're passionate about and just be one of the best in your area, right? You don't have to be the best in your state. You just have to be the best in your area. If you're the best whatever, or one of the best in your area, you're going to get paid no matter what it is that you do, right? So let's find what you're passionate about, what you really believe in. So no matter what, good times, hard times, you're going to stick it out because you love it so much. And that's part of finding your purpose. Right? Because when you're feeling that pressure, that's when you're going to find your purpose. So franchising just opens so much more doors, because it's, again, you can find niche markets within there, places where you're passionate. It's an equal opportunity to show how an equal you want to be. Right?
In a franchise. I sometimes say that passion is overrated. And I have to say that because I meet with these young Gen Z students like you are. You get them in high school, I get them in college. Many of them are lost. And one of the things they're suffering over, well, I don't know what I'm passionate about, they'll say. I didn't know what I was passionate about until I was almost 30 years old. I was in my PhD program. I wasn't studying what I was passionate about. I have 2 degrees in journalism. I loved writing. I still love writing. I wanted to work for newspapers. Thank God that God had a different plan for me
Right.
because there are no newspapers to work for. I'd be without
That's
a
right.
job.
Yeah. So what you got to do, John, what you got to do there is change the W word. It's not what, in other words, what are you passionate about? You can also ask them, who are you passionate about, right? You probably don't know that either. In other words, it's a discovery process, right? But you got to go out and try, right? You got to go out and try things, find things, try different businesses, and you got to find it. It just doesn't hit you. So all young people that say that to me, I said, let's try some things first, right? Because they're not going to come to you. Let's go out, try some things, move around a little bit. Young people do that a lot now, right? There's not that much loyalty. They're going to move around 2 or 3, 4 places. We just try to make it, let's make it 1 or 2 or 3 instead of 6 or 9 or 12, right? Different locations, and get you involved in a career, not just a job.
Yeah. So I want to get to Squeezed, your book. It's a fascinating title. Who's getting squeezed and who's doing the squeezing, and how do you feel about the squeeze? But there's always going to be in your life and always going to be in my life something that ties back to franchising, regardless of what we do. That's we know it works. We know what franchising is about. We know it's not for everybody, but we know it's for a lot more people than know about it. And once we introduce them to it, they do get passionate. In my classrooms, they get passionate. But here's a good example. You're talking about here in the back of the book, there's a life example. Lou Groen. And I love this story. McDonald's franchisee in Cincinnati. And at the time, Cincinnati was like 99% Catholic. Right. So he noticed during Lent that sales dropped because many Catholics avoided meat on Fridays. And for years, this wasn't just during Lent. I'm Catholic, and we didn't eat meat on Fridays.
Right.
We didn't know that we were different. I didn't grow up in Cincinnati. Grew up in Ohio, which is a great place to grow up. Little town and largely Catholic. So, we didn't think anything of not having a hamburger on a Friday. And back when I grew up, McDonald's was just getting its start anyway. But sales dropped during Lent. I mean, how could you on Fridays if you got 99% Catholics in your market and they don't eat meat on Friday, what are you going to sell? And his solution, the Filet-O-Fish. His idea was so successful, it spread company-wide, became a permanent menu item. And that changed McDonald's forever. Well, I use this in a number of ways. One is it's a great story how he dug into, I'm not going to wait to win the lottery here to pull myself out of this slump. I'm going to have to do something else. And went to work to think, had to go sell McDonald's on, hey, we need a fish sandwich. And look how valuable that has become to McDonald's. So when people say, here's the other part of this that I like, when people say, no, you don't want to buy a franchise, you're locked into doing exactly what they tell you to do, when they tell you to do it, how they tell you to do it. Well, go tell that to Lou. Well, right. Lou is probably deceased now, but Lou and other franchisees through the years who convinced their corporate company, hey, we need to start selling this, or we need to start doing it this way. So you can have that influence. Why are you using that life example? What was it about that ties into Squeezed?
Well, I mean, a franchise system is set, right? So the majority, 3 years ago, we didn't know about ChatGPT. That changed our world, right? Yeah. So, I mean, our world changes. So, when you're in this and you're in this long enough, you get some accomplishments and you do all that. There's a franchise 500. There's other things I'm really proud of. What I might be the most proud about, besides how we handled COVID, is we had a Hall of Fame. Before I left running the franchise side of Class 101, I came up with a Hall of Fame. It was some of the owners that had contributed ideas to our concept that were small ideas. And one was just a color, but it just helped elevate because we were doing it together, right? Even though 97% of our brand is set, you should always follow your franchise brand, right? but there are tweaks that happen. And sometimes, so we had a franchise owner that introduced a new software, and to this day, we still use that same software, right? And so we had a terminology, outstanding service, was a terminology that a franchise owner in Florida so we came up with the Hall of Fame. So I started inducting 5 people a year into our Hall of Fame that had small little tweaks, but helped make our company together. So every franchisor should be building their brand, because the integrity of the brand, right, is what's supreme and is bigger than any one individual. That was sent by a good friend of mine. And right, so the integrity of brand is supreme. So you got to be able to do that, but you also got to listen, right? Every once in a while, there's going to be an idea, even though maybe 90-some% of them are I've heard them already.
Not going to work.
That stinks. Why do you want to sell pizzas at a burger joint or whatever it is, right? But sometimes somebody like Lou, comes up with an idea, and that's why I wanted to put it in there. When you're in franchising, you should be set on your brand and how it runs, but every franchisor, I hope, is open to some suggestions to move your brand forward.
Absolutely. So tell us are you being squeezed or are you doing the squeezing? Why does both squeeze?
Well, hopefully both. I've never had that question asked so far, John, so I love that question, right? I mean, if you're growing, right, you're squeezing. I mean, take anybody our age, right, 50s, 60s, we're dealing with AI, right? I mean, you might as well accept it, right? You can't ignore it. It's not like cell phones that some older people have ignored. I don't want to learn how to do those things. You better do AI because it's here and it's just starting, right? So, but we got to learn, right? So how much are you learning, and putting yourself in a position to learn and grow? And normally that means push. If you had a coach, a fitness coach, they'd be pushing you, telling you to do more or right. And so you feel that pressure, right? They always say when you're lifting weights, it's that last bench, right? That gives you the most benefit. So it's when you're getting squeezed, even though we don't want that, right? Nobody wants to be losing assets or be losing time or whatever, but in this time period that you're being squeezed. So, and then as a leader, right, I'm asking my people to be better. I'm trying to help my people to grow, right? So I'm trying to grow individuals. It's because if I can help John Hayes be a better person, then he's going to be a better father. He's going to be a better spouse. He's going to be a better business owner for me. So I want to help John. So I'm asking you, I'm challenging you. I'm telling you to come to our convention because it's going to be worth the $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 you pay for the convention. And you're going to get these nuggets out of the convention. You're going to take them back and put them into your business, and it's going to make you all kinds of money, right? So sometimes you should be being squeezed. I mean, if you're watching this podcast, ask yourself, when's the last time I felt a pretty big pressure? Maybe it's been a while. And then ask yourself, how much have I grown, right? Maybe not. Everybody that has these huge obstacles in their life, whether it's Oprah or whoever else, I named about 14 of them in the book, man, they grew so much, even though they didn't want these things to happen to them in their life. So accept it because it's going to happen. You have natural squeezes. There's people that pass away in your life. There's tornadoes that happen. There's natural things that happen. There's things that happen in life because we're human. So I just kind of accept that, work my way through them, relish the time I'm doing that. And then in the meantime, I try to encourage, challenge people, empower them to become better and feel that squeeze.
So if you feel the pressure, you can discover your passion. That's one way of finding what am I passionate about. But nobody wants to feel pressure. Life is miserable enough the way it is, particularly for a Gen Z. And particularly for parents who've got 4 kids and are trying to get everybody to school and keep them from being dangerous for themselves or towards others. This is a violent world. This is a crazy world. There's a lot of squeeze. Just watch the news and you feel the pressure. You say, I don't know that I want to go outside to go to a restaurant this afternoon. Now, maybe it depends on where you live, and I live in South Florida, and all kinds of bad things happen in the South Florida. On the news, you often hear a Florida man, and now you hear a Florida woman, and you know there's nothing good that's coming after that. So we got the squeeze already, but sometimes do you have to say, I'm going to apply the squeeze. I'm going to get squeezed on purpose. I'm going to do this to myself.
So a good question that parents ask me is, hey, I heard this school was a party school, Right. Well, I always tell parents, well, it's just like high school, right? For a young person, right? They can find a party if they want to find one. They'll find the drugs or they'll find the stuff. But let's do it the opposite way. Because John, there's never been a better time than right now in our society for growth, for AI, for what this world's going to go through in the next 5, 10, 15 years. You're seeing your first trillionaires. You're seeing so there's more opportunities. Now, you might have to do it in business. You might have to create it. You might have to develop. You might have to grow it and become an expert in a particular industry. Well, same thing. If you want to find the bad, just go out at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You'll find plenty of bad stuff happening, right? I mean, but also it's like the chapter in the book, Bad Gravity. Right? If you serve the 5, 6, 7 people that I live around every single day are these amazing people that want to move life forward, that are being positive. So find those people in your life. If you're a young person watching this, right? I don't watch that news. I don't pay attention to the different things. So I occasionally put that on and see the weather or hear that same Kentucky guy or whatever. Sure. But let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of great things. So Squeeze is a celebration. That's why our color, like Lenny back here, right, is our yellow is called Celebration Yellow. That's what it's called, because we celebrate it, right? I mean, you're going to have these times in your life where you're challenged. Just don't give up. Keep trying to go through it, and that's what happens. Young people stop now more than what they get persistent and grind their way through a particular issue. You don't have to give up. It's not mental health. Right. Sometimes we blame it on mental health. Right. That's a sensitive topic. But sometimes we say, oh, it's just, a challenge is a challenge. And sometimes there is mental health because we take it too far or do something that we think. But young people start believing, right? In the middle of the word believe is the word lie. And they start believing those little lies about themselves, and they make it more than what it is. And then they start believing those things. And they shouldn't be doing that either. Right. So it's about attitude. It's about attitude first. Attitude determines results, right? Don't let your results determine your attitude, right? So attitude determines your results. So you got to get up. There's a Squeeze podcast on Spotify. You can get up and listen to that. It will make your day. It will get your day started. I say good morning to my kids every single morning. They're out of school now, but that's the first thing I always say to them, because I want to help start their day. The rest is up to them, but I can start their day by saying good morning. So it starts with a great attitude every day. And going to a place where you love to work or love to be and love to learn. And that takes work to find it. But when you do, it's a refreshing atmosphere to live in.
So I worked with Zig Ziglar for many years. I was a speaker for the Ziglar Corporation for a period of time. And I hear a lot of Ziglar in you. And that's great, because Ziglar, but the young people don't know about Ziglar anymore. Not that they have to, but when we talk about attitude and behaviors and how we think about ourselves, and lie is in the word believe and so forth. Those are Ziglarisms that I appreciate and I understand. I think now we're going we're going to turn the page on some of these things. There's all kinds of challenges that we're naturally going to face. A parent dies, a child dies. There's a divorce. There's a hurricane that wipes out the house, etc. I mean, that any given day, something bad can happen, unfortunately. I want to talk about, I'm going to do it to myself on purpose. I'm going to squeeze myself on purpose, because as one of your questions, are you satisfied with the return on your emotional investments? Well, I can't wait around for a disaster to happen that will make me realize, hey, I can do better on my emotional investments. I could do that to myself. How would I do that to myself?
I do believe it's in a couple different areas. I mean, right? I mean, everybody needs somebody. So it's who you're surrounding yourself, around, right? I do have some old school mentality to me, the Zig Ziglar or whatever you want to call it, but I think everybody should have a mentor, right? Everybody should have people that they're, we're humans. So that means we need to talk some things out. The more we're just relying that on ourselves, we all go through our own things. But that's first, right? It's who you're surrounding yourself with. Who's your lemonade team? Because there is going to be a day, right? Right now, I just have a few things happening in my life. But last year, boy, Had some tragic deaths happen in my family. I mean, different things. My priest passed away tragically. It'd be 2 years ago this summer. And he was one of my best friends. And so stuff like that is going to happen. So it's just nice. It's who's on your lemonade team? Who's going to be there for you? And it's hard because we're generally selfish, right? We're paying attention in our own world. That's why when you look at a picture, who do you look at first? You look at yourself if you're in the picture, and what's your face look like, or your smile, or whatever, right? I mean, so it's about turning and giving to people. It's who's on your lemonade team. That's the return on emotional investment. I got 7, 8, 9 people now in my life that I surround my life with, and it's just such a wonderful. Do we still all have issues? We do, because life happens. But boy, it sure is nice living this world with my spouse and with my friends and my good friends and my business partners, with all people that are trying to be better people.
So a lot of young people today, the Gen Zs, as I've mentioned, who I teach, they don't know how to make friends. They were homeschooled, or they had lifestyles that they moved around a lot. Many of my students don't easily make friends and don't have friends. So to have a lemonade team, that's they'd have to get squeezed first. And to some extent, I do squeeze some of them, because I point out to them, you're going to have to work with a team. When you're a franchisee, a franchisor, an employee in a non-franchise company, you're probably going to work with other people. Nobody does it alone. Maybe Trump does. Not even Trump does. It may look like Trump does, but not even Trump is doing these things alone, good or bad.
Right.
There's a team. You got to know how to work with people, and you can't fire them all and run over all of them because you're a high D personality. You can do that, and there's always somebody else who want to work for you, but that probably isn't the way you want to spend your life. So I help them understand. We use the DISC personality strongly as well. They don't know how to do this or why to do this. So if I'm a franchisor and I hire you into my marketing department, I don't want the Lone Ranger. I want a team player, but you don't know how to do it. And college doesn't train you to do that. Colleges aren't doing that. Yeah. Colleges are not preparing these young people to emotional investment to get a payoff. No, that's not happening. I don't see that happening. We need to do better at that. And also, sometimes I can recall 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when I was much younger, bringing up children, working through a marriage that lasted almost 50 years until my wife unfortunately died. I joined a men's group that met on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. Well, I don't know about you, but on Saturdays at 7 a.m., I like to be sleeping because I don't want to be getting up. But man, I got up at 6:30, took a shower, and got to that men's group for years. And these weren't, hey, come in, let's have some coffee. How are you? Pat you on the back. No, these were guys, okay, well, how's your emotional investment? How's that paying off? Let's take a look at that. How's your relationship with God? What'd you do this week? Tell us about your relationship with God. I mean, they put you on the spot. And but I knew I was being squeezed there, and that paid off. So I did that to myself. Nobody made me do that. My wife didn't say, hey, get out of bed and go to this group. It wasn't that. It wasn't a natural occurrence. We've got to do this to ourselves. We've got to put ourselves through some misery from time to time.
Yeah, it takes sacrifice, right? I mean, we all have our favorite book. When I was selling fire extinguishers way back in the day in New Philadelphia, Ohio, to Amish people, it was the greatest salesman in the world, right? I would repeat chapter 10, right? I will persist until I succeed, from Og Mandino, right? I love that book.
Yeah.
So you can have other things, right, that are sources of inspiration, right? I hope people have faith, right, in something. I hope they have that. I hope that they believe in people, because they're going to need people, right? Somebody's going to take care of them, or whatever it is. So you got to learn how to. So you're right. I mean, a risk is going to be needed. And a risk could be just taking a Toastmasters class, going to a networking meeting like BNI, doing different types of things that are out there and available for people to learn, but they got to develop their skills, right? They got to be better. I'm not saying you're going to be the most gregarious person in the world. We all have our gifts, and we need to learn how to use those as far as that goes. People on the DISC scale that are C's and S's are going to be accountants and CFOs and so on, and they don't deal with too many people as much as the D's and the I's do.
Right.
But in general, right? I mean, find your route, but it's about, again, right? There's three things. I have a college planning firm, or had a college planning firm, right? I have my own franchise. I wrote a book. I would consider writing to be my 79th best gift, right? I'm not a writer. I'm a marketing guy that wrote a book. That's why we're able to sell some now, right? It's kind of nice. And then I didn't know anything about franchising, didn't know anything about a book, didn't know anything about college planning, but I was willing to learn. So again, you got to be willing to learn. So now you can go to Udemy, right, and find any class that you want out there, right, on anything, and learn how to become an expert or get a certificate or go to a school like yours to create your own industry. And maybe that's it. Maybe you need to create your own employment. But it's out there, but you have to try. And where energy goes, progress grows. We know that. And so you got to try some things to find what you like, and you'll fail a bunch.
Trying is the squeeze for a lot of young people.
Right.
We have an advantage at Palm Beach Atlantic because we're a Christ First University, and students know that when they come. So they expect us. And I have the freedom in the classroom to speak about my relationship with Jesus Christ. I have an opportunity to bless those students when we have something that goes the wrong way. We can stop and pray in the classroom, and nobody thinks that's odd. No one's going to go report me to the president or to the mayor or anybody else for doing those things. So we have a big advantage with that. But even these students who come to us churched, so to speak, it's not a word that I particularly like, but people understand it, they struggle with somebody's got to squeeze them. And maybe the parents didn't squeeze them enough. And that's where part of the problem is. Are you putting energy into places that build you spiritually and not just financially? One of your questions. Okay, again, you're going to have, maybe a parent puts the squeeze on to create that opportunity for you, but maybe not. Again, you might have to do it yourself. And are your relationships, work, and routines producing the kind of fulfillment you need? And if not, you need to get a different job. You need to find different friends and different routines. These things are hard to do, Tom Pabin. That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah. Those are questions, right? I mean, and you can find those, you can develop them, but let me just go back to my leadership principle. I want to help everybody be a better person, right? And if I can help them be more at peace with themselves, and if I can help them find a fulfilling atmosphere. We all know when you're building a business, it's about having the right people in the right seats, right? And so you put those people in there that are blessed or have those gifts and talents. That doesn't mean they're going to be president of the company or going to be your top producer, but everybody has a seat, on our bus, and we all do it together, and we're all heading in the same direction. That's a wonderful thing. So that's no different than a family, right? You find a spouse, you have kids, or you build a family. I tell my kids, getting ready to be 60 in a few years here. But I've told my kids even when I was young, I won't be here forever, but God will be, right? And so you'll have that person or that faith to be with you at all times, no matter what happens. So you're just building, and maybe it doesn't seem like it, but you're building your team. But not on the superficial side, but it's when there's a funeral, who shows up, right? And when there's other bad things that happen. That's why I think my best dating advice to my boys is it's easy when life's good, right? But when you're dating somebody, let's see how they act and how you act together when something bad happens, right? And then you'll know who you got, and are they willing to apologize or grow from it, or we all make mistakes, but so that's all part of it. So yeah, it's understanding that squeeze. It's about the fruit of what's coming out of that, right? What's your life bearing? What kind of fruit are you giving to our world? And if you do that, it just comes back. I've been so blessed because I just try to help people, and it's weird how it all just comes back around, right? The giver's gain, or there's so many different sayings, about that, but it's about what you're giving to our world.
So that leads right into where I want to go next. You've got the great Leonard Nimoy in your book, who said, "The more we share, the more we have." Zig Ziglar said those same kinds of things. Og Mandino had that same message. Many of our inspirational speakers, the more we share, the more we have. And you have an example in the book that I liked very much, one of the clearest pre-squeezed lemonade lessons. And pre-squeezed means that the lemonade is what we want to get to, because the lemonade is good, particularly on a hot day with ice cubes. But you weren't producing that lemonade quite in the quantity you wanted. So one of the pre-squeezed lemonade lessons in my life came from 1997 to 2007 with my unique business calling. I could have run my college planning business quietly, keeping it small, local, and profitable. I might have made more money in the short term, but instead I chose to share the idea with others, franchisees across the nation. And why did you do that? Because the idea deserved to grow. You wanted to help more students and families. It was bigger than me. The franchisees received the system that you took 10 years working out before you franchised it, which is great. Good example. The franchisees received 90% of the profits, because if they're paying a 10% royalty, they're getting 90% of the rest of the money that's coming in, and a return on their emotional investment. I got to grow, to scale, and to watch an idea I loved expand into the world. Great example. Talk more about that, how that made a difference in your life.
Yeah. It's just no fun if you don't share, right? It just isn't, right? You have to share things in the world. I kind of fell into this through youth ministry and helping my first few students that were in my youth ministry do this, because some of the parents knew I had a connection with their kids, and then I got really good at doing it, because 10 years of learning and growing, and hundreds of kids, will do that. And then just an opportunity to share it. I didn't know anything about franchising, so I took a risk, right? And spent money and did the things I needed to do to learn about that, and going to the IFA convention down in New Orleans way back when. And that was an amazing place where I met some people, and I asked around and said, "Hey, I'm new at this. Can you help me?" And, I just was, again, there's going to be times where you have to be brave, right? For your business to become limitless, you must become fearless, right? And so that's what I wanted to do. So I wanted to keep sharing. I wanted to keep trying to do that and learn how to do it. It didn't go perfectly, right? We had some franchise owners fail. We just had 90% of ours succeed, right? Which we were really happy, because again, if they believe, they don't leave. Right? You see these different people have mass exoduses from their company because they don't believe in the leadership, right? They just go away. Yeah. Even good people will go away, right? Because they don't believe in the leadership that's there. That's why they keep turning people over, presidents or other different types of people, right? So that just happens. But when you're sharing and you're doing it together, right? The Hall of Fame was a sharing of credit to these people that deserve the credit. Lou deserves the credit for the Filet-O-Fish, right? Other people deserve credit. So you share the idea, you share it together. And I remember I didn't have an advertising fee, John. I didn't charge it. We just did the 8%. And I remember when I was like 10 years in, and I told the franchisor, we're just at a point where I need to start charging this. And believe it or not, I'm sure there were some ruffles, in the world, but I didn't have any pushback, because I showed them what we could get if we had this and how we could build our brand, because we were doing it together. So yes, I had to ask them to spend more money with us to build this marketing and to build our brand and our colors and all the other stuff. But when you're always sharing and you're always giving to them, right? If you make a mistake, people then forgive you, right? Because they know you're on their team, because you've been sharing this idea and you've been doing it together. When something needs to cost more, right? And it needs to be shared. And sometimes I remember I had to build a website, right? Because our website was just average. We didn't want it to be average. We wanted it to be great or outstanding. And so I ponied up the money. I didn't ask my owners to do that, right? To do that. And it cost a lot of money at that time. But I just felt like that was the right thing to do. So when they catch you doing the right things and you're sharing your idea, no matter what it is, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there that had ideas, and 5 years later they see it on the shelf and they're like, I could have had that, and then they didn't go out there and act on it. So sharing is a big part of it. Share with your team. If you share, so that's what happened. And again, the first owners and all those original owners, were able to, have a really good income, and now all multimillionaires from the first franchise owners I had have made millions. Great. They deserve it because they put the work in and did the thing and learned the system. Right. So sharing is key, sharing and giving. Right. Nobody ever became poor by giving. Right.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So another thing that I saw in the book, and my reaction wasn't a good reaction, as I'll explain to you. You say here, so how did we grow nationwide? And I thought, I hope he's not going to say this, but of course it's right there in front of my eyes, through culture. I hear so much about culture, particularly in franchising, and everybody wants to emulate Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A has put the squeeze on themselves from day one to create that culture. That culture has come at great expense to Chick-fil-A. Dwyer is another one. Don Dwyer, who was my client for many years, now it's known as Neighborly. But back there in little Waco, it's not so little anymore, but it was little back then.
Right.
Don got started in 1980. I started working with him in the late 80s. And culture, what was preached. But he did it through values as well. And then when Dina, his daughter, one of his daughters, took over for him after Don's death, of course, that was untimely. That put a squeeze on everybody at the Dwyer Group at the time, including me, as he was my biggest, most interesting client. Yeah. But they practiced. Every time there was a meeting, the culture was talked about through what the values were. And you said, I made my culture my top priority. I'm sure you did. And I worked to create an environment built on trust, respect, teamwork, consistency, togetherness. All right, those all sound great. But there are a lot of companies out there that say this. Come on. You wouldn't want to be part of their culture. There are universities that say this. You don't want to be part of their culture. There are businesses that buy into this culture idea, but there's no squeeze. You got to have some squeeze if you're using culture. So tell us more about how that's happened with you in Class 101, what you recommend.
Yeah. I mean, it starts with that's your leadership, right? I mean, your leadership are the people that are the ones that are acting, right? I mean, my parenting advice is I greet my kids in the morning and say good morning, and I do everything I try to tell them I do, that I say I'm going to do, I do. That's it. That's my parenting advice.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. And so same thing in our company, right? So I really do. And you're going to have actions that show that you really believe in culture, right? So survey forms. I remember I thought we had pretty good marketing, right? We just talked about this. And I did a survey, and the survey came back, and it was awful, right? I had all lowest ranks in marketing and support in marketing. And so I vowed to everybody that we would have the #1 marketing in the children's brand in the nation, right? And it took years, and it took all that money, and eventually we had to raise the 2%, for the advertising fund and do that. So it's just an easy thing. Honesty is the best policy. There's a whole bunch of trite sayings out there. It's just right. I showed myself to be last. I'm going to show my team leaders first and me. I don't need to get up there and talk and do that when these leaders are the leaders in their departments, right? So culture is really big. I was not a super great executive, but what I was really good at is just treating people fairly. I use the word fair in franchising. Imagine that. I tried to be fair with the franchise owners, and the franchise owners tried to be fair with me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a swear word. in franchising world, right? And so that's culture though for us. I wasn't the best executive because I didn't know how to do a nationwide company. I had never done one before, but we just kept learning. I kept going to IFA. I kept getting mentors. There were mentors, that are CEOs still of franchise brands right now. And then it got to a point right after COVID that got too much for me. It wasn't really me anymore, right? So I needed to sell but I still do college planning to this day, right? But now I had the book and college planning and so that's just how it works. So culture is a big thing. It is a believable thing, but it's just actions. It's action. So you got to show it to the people. Again, people can hear it. They can smell it, right? I was on your call again with Gar Russell for 5 minutes, and I could just say that guy's a genuine human being. I don't even know him
right
at all.
Yeah.
But you could just tell that he treats his owners. You can hear the words. It didn't sound like a sales pitch. It didn't sound like anything. There was genuineness in that guy's voice. You could just hear it. He resonated. I could smell the goodness in him. Yeah. That's a guy I'll follow. I'll follow that guy. I don't even know him. Yeah. I would follow him.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have people who are going to watch you and say, I'm going to follow that Tom Pabin. I love what
well, we had a bunch of those, right? We still do. They're still in the brand. But see, that's it. So, how do I make it more about the other people than me, right? Again, right? It's very easy to be selfish. I work with some teenagers, but superficial exists, right? Other things like that. And so you just gotta try to do everything you can. Please, CEOs and franchisors, do everything you can to take care of your franchise owners. You're going to have to ask them for more money or other things at times, but if they know that you're going to bat for them, they're going to believe in you. And even if at the time they might not, they will later. And that's even happened with me now. I have some franchise owners come back and say, wow, gosh, thank you for what you did for me when you were there. Right. So culture is real. It's a buzzword that is a lot of times said and not followed. Just do the follow. Don't worry about saying. I don't have to tell people. I just do it. Just do it. And then they'll see.
So you make this promise.
Not to be talked about. It's to be lived.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, good. You make this promise to your readers. This is your chance to see what you're made of. When you're squeezed, what comes out? I like that idea because I believe in squeezing. This is the book. And where do people get this book, Tom?
They can go to tompabin.com. It's Tom, Pabin.com, tompabin.com. Go there. I'm going to be doing some coaching now here in the summer and next year and in 2027, some business coaching. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, speaking engagements for different types of companies or franchisors. If you want to, John Maxwell and some of those are Jesse Eitzler, people I admire, right? I'm not in their league. I don't charge what they charge, as far as that goes. So a little lower end kind of, my heart is really with merging franchises. Yeah, right. Because when I was young meaning 10, 20, 30 locations, I couldn't afford John Maxwell's as much as I wanted them to become. So I'm trying to fit a niche of young franchisors that I can relate to, that I know because I've lived it, right? I don't have to tell you about what I think. I'll tell you what I know because I lived it. As far as going through that, building a franchise and scaling it nationwide. So tompabin.com, feel free to do that. If you've read the book, or thank you, John, for reading it, leave a review there, and we're blessed.
And are you going to get this book on Amazon? We'll be able to get it there because you got to have that.
So far we don't have it on Amazon.
Not hard
our
to
sales
do.
team. Yeah, our sales team and other things have done a pretty good job. We've sold more than 99% of people that have books, and we've only had ours out for 5 months than most people. But eventually, I will be on some of those things. I don't have an audio book yet. Some of these other things are coming.
My audio book.
So they're coming out here in the second half of the year. Yeah, you'll see those.
So it's a small world because when I didn't know this before, but when I heard you say New Philadelphia, at first I thought you were going to say Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which I think is the greatest city in the world. I lived there 20 years, Temple University graduate. But you said New Philadelphia, Ohio. Do you know we were neighbors? I grew up in Dover, Ohio.
Yeah.
The Amish were in Dover more often than they were in New Philadelphia, and they're still out there
Yeah.
in Sugar Creek,
Yeah,
Ohio.
Sugar Creek. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm from Youngstown. I got a Youngstown shirt on today, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But we used to go there because the people were so nice. And when I was selling fire extinguishers, they were just such a nice people. So we'd go down there and help sell fire extinguishers to the people in that area. Wonderful. That's where I cut my teeth in sales. So,
that's so.
I'm
Still
partial.
a great area. Love it there.
Absolutely.
All right, Tom. Well, always fun talking to you and lots to learn from you. And it's very wholesome. And you're helping our young people, which is fantastic. We need that. And I look forward to the next time we have a chance to talk.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John, for your support. You've always been so good to us and kind. Again, one of those words that often is associated with franchising, but it's nice to know kind people and those and spreading the word. And I wish everybody that's listening to this podcast peace in your life. It's short, believe me, it's short. So, but we all need to make money and do things and retire and take care of our kids and our families. And so we have careers and things like that. But I wish everybody peace. And thank you so much, John, again. Really appreciate you.
Best wishes, Tom.
Thanks for tuning in to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast with Dr. John P. Hayes. Tune in next time for more conversation around all things franchising.